Hello, my friends. This is Joe Padovich here at 949-439-0383. We're going to be here for about 20 to 30 minutes to talk about the new laws here in the state of California and how that affects me as a realtor, you as a home seller, a home buyer, because both real estate agents, home buyers, home sellers must comply with these laws. And so what we must do is work together on this situation here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about many different things. What we do as agents, sellers, and what we do as buyers. Each one of us has a different duty to each other. And so let me begin with starting with here. Let's look at this here. California real estate laws and change in 2026 for agents, sellers, and buyers, as we just talked about. Okay, now let's go through this document here. This document's California real estate laws, agents, it's office crawl. That is the credit to them. Okay. Now, expanded disclosures and TDS and SPQ requirements. Now, here's the thing about this is very important to understand here. Third-party nicotine residue disclosures. Now, what you're looking at here is really important here, okay? So if you're selling your home, you must disclose, clean disclose. And I'm going to read it right here for you, and you'll have it here. A new tobacco nicotine disclosure, where it transfers disclosure to document, one of the most important documents in history in real estate. Mobile homes, apartments, residentials, sellers must disclose known tobacco nicotine residue, third-hand smoke, history of smoking activities on the property of Steve Lopez law. Now we can click on and read the law. Now, what that means is you must disclose if somebody smoked on the property, if anything happened like this in the property, you must disclose that. Now, can you get away, like we're supposed to talk about? I'm a real estate agent, I'm not a lawyer. So what you're doing here is if somebody smoked on the property, you got to disclose it. Is there any tobacco residue? You have to disclose it. So in the seller property questionnaire, you can ask that question. Now they can go in there and do testing and to see if there's nicotine in the property. And one of the important things about understanding about this is when you're putting your house up for sale and you're out there doing this and you're putting your property for sale and you have buyers come in and you didn't disclose that, that right there is going to be a problem, because me as an agent selling your home or listing your home, whatever it is, I have to make sure that what you're doing is honest. You have to make sure you disclose everything. So you have to make sure that if there's smokers in the house, or there were that you know of, especially places that are rented out to tenants. Usually, I used to have a rental property years ago, and one of the rules I had in the property is that you're not allowed to smoke in the property. You cannot smoke in the house. You cannot smoke on the deck, you can't smoke in the house. That's my property, you're renting it from me, you cannot smoke on the property. That's my property, that's my rule, you can't smoke on the property. So if you're gonna rent a property out, you own it, rent it out, you should tell people you can't smoke on the property unless they pay to clean it. Now, I'm not sure if the law means, you have to read it. It says, if it's cleaned, do you still have to disclose it? I don't know that, we'll have to look at that. Okay, so that's a very critical, important thing to understand about smoking, nicotine, anything. And remember, changing the subject for a second, if you look at people buying and selling cars, you smoke in a car, it gets into the air conditioning units, gets in the, so just if you smoke, don't smoke in the car, don't smoke in your property. And don't let your tenants smoke on the property. That's a very important thing right there, to look at that. And if you're interested, go to Steve Lopez law, and you can read that and look at the laws from the state of California. Now, I'm not sure if that applies to HUD laws or HUD homes, FHA, but if you're buying and selling in California, do that. Now, here's another important thing to look at. Electrical system appliance future notice, okay? So what that means is you're going to have to make sure that if you rent a property out, you have to provide this. I don't think this is what this is going on here, but I'm gonna touch base on this. If you're renting a property out, you must provide a stove and refrigerator, but at what cost, what agreement, that's something to look at, but, okay. Existing state requirements, future replacement power being transferred within the property. Okay, here's the important thing about this is, you gotta make sure by inspecting wire panels and wire components, okay? That's important. The additional party to a seller or agent aware of such requirements. That will be part of the SPQ delivered to TDS, and you must have a statutory termination rights, 5 days of delivery. That's all kind of real estate jargon. We can talk about that later. That's about transactions. But make sure you have, when you have your wash machine, your dishwasher, your stove, everything is up to code, okay? This is telling you existing state or local requirements regarding future replacement of gas power being transferred with the property. So you're going to have to replace things here in the future. Okay, this is a future thing here, but it could affect you selling now. This is something that we still got to learn about. I'm learning about this stuff too, so we have to look at this stuff about the compliance. Now, one of the most important things to look at here is the TDS and these other documents. And when you look at these documents here, okay. Okay, now, here's the thing, the transfer disclosure statement. That's, like I said, that's one of the most, other than the listing agreements, without this transfer disclosure statement, everything is out the window. You have to have this, it has to be complete, it has to be done, everything, okay? Disclosure California real estate sales, okay? It says no material facts about the property. It's no material facts about the property, including structural systems, environmental hazards, more, before sales closes, okay? Now, this property seller SPQ, they're gonna ask, you get a list of the customer, the buyer, the seller, and he fills out, she or they fill out the list of everything going on with the property, okay? Oh, this is wrong, just like the, we talked about a few minutes ago, about the nicotine, smoking, and the electrical panels, you have to put all that down here, okay? Now, as a real estate agent, I'm not an electrician, okay? But if I see something, I have to notify. Like I go look at your electrical panel, your son, a 1955 home. And I look at, and I go, I say, oh, where's your electrical panel? And you go, oh yeah, Joe, it's right over here. And I walk out there and I see that there's a burn mark on one of the switches. Like it popped off, there's a burn mark there. That tells me something short out, something's going on. I could physically see that going on there. I'm not an electrician, but I'm a realtor, and I can look at that mark on your electrical box and say something short or something burned there. So you would have to call an electrician and have them either, that needs to be repaired, that needs to be fixed or repaired or whatever we do, or get checked or written off. Okay, same thing with cracked wires. Older homes have the old wiring, you have to check that stuff. Now, another thing we look at here is, now it says both forms require, that's exempt. Okay, now we're not going to talk about what's exempt here because that's a legal question. But one of the things I think is exempt if you pay cash, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on that, or if you do a certain type of transaction. Okay, but it's not about being exempt. It's about getting that done that you have to get done for the transfer disclosure statement and the SPQ. Okay, make sure these things are done correctly, filled out properly. Okay, now another important thing here is, I'll be about another 10 to 15 minutes, is, now here's another thing we have to look at. Okay, as realtors, we have new forms. Okay, as realtors, we have new forms that we have to deal and fill out. So California Association of Realtors has released a new and revised forms 2026 that we have to deal with. But you as a customer, as a seller, a buyer, also has to be involved. So that's why we're talking about this. So what about the buyer and seller agreements? The buyer representative forms, notice of compliance form we just talked about. These updates are required for disclosures, nicotine residue, electrical inspection, and compliance with new laws. Okay? So these things have to be disclosed, used, filled out, and, yeah, don't lie in a form, because the thing is, if you sell your house to a buyer, and you tell the buyer, yes, Paul, I haven't, there's been no smoke in the house. And Paul, who bought your house, can legally go and get a company that tests for nicotine. Okay? And they find nicotine in the house. Paul can turn around and sue you for failing to disclose. And if you didn't even know that, it's your job to know, because like I said before, if you run out your property, okay? If you run out your, if you, have a good night, Daisy. If you run out your property, okay, and there's smokers in the property, and you don't disclose that, and you say, well, I didn't know. It's your job to know. Remember, it's up to you to know what's going on in your rental property. Like I said before, do not let people smoke on your property unless you're going to have problems selling it. Now, here's another important thing to talk about here. Remember, everything is, we can use this right here, my cell phone. You can use your cell phone and create all kinds of stuff from it. You can create everything you can imagine from it. You can go on AI and say, give me President Abraham Lincoln riding a horse with an American flag on the beach. And you know what? In 3 to 10 seconds, that picture come up to President Lincoln riding a horse with a flag on the beach, because I asked him to do that. Now, here's what's important about real estate. You got to keep it straight, okay? Now, it's okay to go out there and digitally do things. Oh, how would this look? How would that look? But the important thing about this is critically important, okay? It says altered photos must include a clear disclosure near the image, which means if you go to AI generated or AI enhanced, or we added trees, we added this, we added a pool, what if somebody says, hey, Joe, I want to buy a house, I want a pool? Uh, a pool with a diving board and a slide, a jacuzzi, and just a nice pool. And I go and say, okay, and I want to sell this house. And okay, well, the house doesn't have a pool, but like a fool, like an idiot, Joe creates an AI image of a house with a pool and a slide, and you go out there and see the house and there's no pool. It's like, guess what happened? Exactly. You have to be honest. Now, here's the thing, okay? You have to provide access, QR code of the original unedited photos. So if you're using AI to create a photo, within that area, you have to have a picture or a QR code of the original photo. So now you want to make this house look beautiful, perfectly painted, clean and everything, and you enhance it and do all that, get rid of all this mess up on the stucco, get rid of everything. And you fix it up and look really nice. And guess what happens? They see that and they go out, they want to buy the house, but this is what they saw. So you have to have the original photos with that document, those photos, to show that this is what it is. Be honest, okay? Now, here's another thing, important thing. We're going to be here for about another few minutes, okay? Habitability of rental units. Remember, you are an owner. You have to make your home habitability. And that could be many different things, quiet, peaceful, all those different things. But here's the thing. Okay, the stove and refrigerator requirement, that's in California. Okay, now I don't really agree with this per se. I don't have a problem with it, people getting a refrigerator and stove who are temporarily living there, like by colleges. Okay, because they're unlimited funds. I don't mind the renter, the owner of the complex, providing a stove or a refrigerator. But my problem I have with this is somebody requiring a stove or a renter that has a job, that pays their rent, and can afford it. I don't think the owner of the property should be burdened with the stove and or the refrigerator. But that's my opinion. That's the law. I don't agree with it, but I have to abide by it. So if you're renting a property in California, you got a lot of things to worry about, making sure that everything's habitability, make sure that people have things and they don't smoke on your property. We're sticking this stuff on that's important here. Okay. Other transactional requirements. Now, this very important thing is about buyer representation agreements. It used to be before all this stuff goes, I don't agree with this class action lawsuit either, but that's besides the point. We have to deal with it. Before, what happened was the property would sell. The seller's proceeds from the house would use that to pay the real estate agent, the realtor. So the realtor in time would get paid by the seller, but now that's all changed. Now the buyer has to come up with the money or make an agreement with the seller outside and have that written in the form and agreement in the listing agreement and the purchase agreement. So the seller must deal with the buyer, and if the buyer can't afford to pay the seller's commission, the buyer's agent commission, it's in the document, and the seller can provide the fees or not pay the agent. So usually when somebody's buying a house, they don't have cash really to pay an agent unless they're of high income or whatever. So before you deal with somebody who's buying a house, doesn't have the money to pay your commission, figure what you can do to work with them, okay? There's people that need help, maybe work with them, maybe get with FHA, HUD, and get in their agents and help them, okay? Now, another important thing is why these changes matter. Okay, now here's the thing that this is somebody's opinion here on this website, which is Owl, House Owl. And so here's the thing is, we're doing through transparency, consumer protections, I agree with all that. But here's part of the problem. Here's part of the problem. When you're forcing somebody to do something, like purchase appliances for renters, and no matter who they are, that affects sales, property, and it takes away the people that own the property. They have to pay more expenses out, okay? I don't have a problem with that by colleges or other stuff like this where people are temporary. They're going to be in and out. They're going to be different. But if you're living in a house or a condo and you're there for years, you're a homeowner, the owner shouldn't have to pay your stuff, but that's, I know I disagree with it, but that's it. Now, you want to risk liabilities insurance. That's why they have the laws regarding the, all this other stuff here, you know, regarding the HOA disclosures, decks and all that other stuff. And one more thing here about, we want to modernize homes. We want to have homes in the 30s and 40s and 50s, breaking, cracking, you know, being a hazard or potential hazard. Got to get that updated. So now, what's important here is what's important here as an agent for me and for you as a buyer, seller. Your TDS forms and SPQ forms. Those are critically important. Everything you put in that form, every single thing, all those things you fill out, each one is a potential liability. If you say nobody smoked there and they smoke, boom, you're gone. If you say no mold and there's mold in your back closet in your house, boom. Everything, because here's what's going on here, man. Everything is a potential lawsuit. Because they want to sue you. They want to get out of the contract. Even they agree to get into the contract, they want to find a way to get out of the contract. So what you got to do is make sure you're compliant, make sure you're honest, make sure you fill out the form. And a very important thing is, you rent properties, like I've been talking about smoking. I'm not going to talk about it again, but we've been on that a lot. But you rent a property out, you're the ruler. It's your home. You tell them, no smoking, none of this in my house. Because you can go down and have your house. If they smoke in your house, they have to clean it. No, like I said before, I don't know about smoking. If you clean it out and get it cleaner, I don't think, if you say you didn't know, you didn't know, you know? Okay. Marketing policies comply with digital disclosure rules. You have to, we're AI, man. Everything's AI. Everything is AI, man. And you can make a house look beautiful, but take a picture, update it, and, you know. the CRR forms and DRE guidelines, we're all regulated by the Department of Real Estate and federal laws, okay? Me as a real estate agent at 949-439-0383, I'm required to follow these laws. I'm required to know them. And if I don't know them, if I don't ask the right questions and fill out the form, I can get in trouble, okay? So one of the important things to take away from this here is what? Disclose, 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 be honest. And let's talk about a few laws in this book here also. I went on here, but let's look at a few things here. Okay. Now we have this one here. I'm not sure if you can see this. Let's go right here for you guys. Just give you a second to read that. Okay. You can see that right there. Now what this is the Cartwright Action violation prohibits use of distribution condo pricing as a contract. So you can't use algorithms and all stuff in pricing. It's kind of a complicated thing here. It prohibits the use of distribution of common pricing algorithm as part of the contract of trust, transparency. So it's more of a complex negotiation, complex stuff here about algorithms and pricing. That it's a little bit above my pay scale. It's more of a financial thing, okay? Now, we just talked about the real estate dignity altered images. We talked about that here. We talked about balcony inspections. We talked about that. It's a new law required because of what happened, and this was effective last year in 2025. What actually happened was some people were on the deck, and the deck collapsed, and a lot of people died because of that. It was very sad. And you can't have all that. The thing about this is, if you have a deck, rule is not that many people on the deck. It's a deck. It's bolted down. And you know what? When it's bolted down, what happens? Especially live by the ocean, what happens? Deterioration by the water. Okay, let's continue a little bit of this. There's a few more things we're going to talk about for a second. You want to look at that? You want to zoom in on that and take a look at that? Okay. Now let's look at this here. Social Security Tenant Protection Act. For some reason, if your Social Security benefits that come through, you have to let them know, and they can't not evict you. So, since it's through Social Security, that will be through federal government, but also through California. Okay. The Department of Real Estate and Bureau of Automotive Repair. Okay, here's an existing law. We all have to provide current email addresses to the Department of Real Estate, like lawyers, because they keep moving around. We have to make sure that if you want to find me, okay, Joe Padovich, Padovich, you can go to the GRE. I work for Keller Williams, and I'm at joepadovich@gmail.com or joepadovich@kw.com. Either one of the two I use. But if you look me up, and I don't work at Keller Williams, I work at Century 21, another one. I didn't comply. I don't have my license and my name in the right place. So you can find me, and you can trust me and look me up and see I'm right there. Okay. Now, here's another one here. California Fair Plan and Manufactured Homes. Now, I usually don't work with manufactured homes, but this is a fair plan including insurance for manufactured homes and under the same terms. I don't deal with this, but this is it right here. But if you have a manufactured home, you should know that. Okay. So, but I don't really work with manufactured homes, but just so you know. Okay. Now, as of last year, we all know what happened in California. Mortgage forbearance, state of emergency, wildfire, that's a new law. So if there's a hardship or a fire, you automatically get forbearance on your property, or we have to, how to deal with these people who's got their houses burned out. How do you pay for this? What do? Do you give it back to keys? That's an important thing. Here's a service for process for accountability. This is for vacant land. I don't really understand much about this. It's a little bit above what I do. But we got some more here to look at. This is like new laws. Okay, this is right here. Let's look at these right here real quick. I'll give you a few minutes and zoom in there and look at my, if you can read these. Okay, let's give you a second to look at these. Okay, now we got here, return of residential tenancies. Now, here's the thing. Remember, when people rent out apartments, they wouldn't get their money back, but this, I'm gonna read this to you. Electronic return is, okay, an electronic return of security deposit is a default option of initial deposit made electrically, unless otherwise in writing, upon a tournament in your term. The landlord must send notice right to receive security if paid electric. Now, there are multiple tenants, security deposits made out to tenants unless otherwise you're right. But here's the thing about this is, when you do your first and last month, go in there and make a video. If you move in there May 1st, 2026, make a video of the whole house. It might be like a 15-minute video. Every corner, the bathroom, the kitchen, everything around. And then if there's any spots, any damages, mark it. Have that video. Send them that video when you move in. And then when you move out, have the same video, repair the video, because they cannot charge you for normal wear and tear. So if you live in a property for 5 years or more or whatever, and they change your carpets, they can't charge you to change your carpets or clean the property. Unless if they come in to clean the carpets as a normal procedure, that's fine. But they can't charge you to do that. They can't charge you to go and update and fix things. Understand that? Okay. Okay, this is disaster tenants, mobile home parks. Okay, that's the duty of the landlord to immediately clean the debris from a mobile home disaster. Landlord tenant, internet service provider subscriptions. Okay, now listen to this. This is important because sometimes a community will have, just like the trash and electricity, they'll have the stuff going for the whole building electrical. Here's the new laws here. Landlord tenant internet service provider subscriptions. Okay, AB 14, okay, right here. Right there. Okay. It says, AB 4 prohibits a landlord required tenant to use a particular internet service provider. Okay? Allows the tenant to deduct the costs through the landlord, violates this provision. However, landlords may continue to offer bulk arrangements while preserving the ability to opt in if they want. So in other words, if you don't want to use their service, you want to use something else, you pay for that separately. They can't bill you for that. Okay? And it says, now this is beginning, here's something coming out in 2027. It's about dwelling indoor temperature. Okay, so that's, I don't understand what that is, so we'll talk about it later. We talked about stoves and refrigerators. We talked about that. Okay. Motels, hotels, and short-term lodging for disasters. Now, under current law, a tenant who has remained on the property for 30 days or more is typically entitled to use a benefit. Lawfully tenant but being removed, urgency bill effective. Okay, so that's about people living in a hotel room after the house burned down. That's really sad, you know, it really is. It really affected a lot of people, and it's really sad what happened. But we need to fix that for that. Okay. So we got two more pages. Okay. Now, here's another thing is, here's the new rules here. I'll give you that page to look at there. Okay, take a look at that page right there. Okay. And we're going to be talking about this stuff here. Just give me a second more to look at it. I hope you guys can zoom in and see that. Okay. Now, what this is here is reporting anti-money laundering rule. We went over that in our real estate classes. So here's the thing is, people commit crimes. People are unethical and they use unethical things. What unethical things? So what they do is they're bundling money through real estate. They're buying and selling real estate and laundering, paying cash and paying high dividends, high cash, high value for properties. But what they're doing is they're using illegal funds. So here's the thing is, okay, starting May 1st, March 1st, 2026, any escrow title company responsible for closing and submit units FINCN, CEN, if all apply. A residential unit purchase vacant land dependency. Okay, what this does is they're gonna check the Treasury Department or all these other entities, and it's gonna say, a new car form, FRAPA, will be bundled in addendum to CR disclosures, contracts, and compliance with both contracts. Okay, so what this is gonna do is that they must obtain a report FIN without provided disclose, will not disclose, the escrow not closed. So what that's telling you is, we gotta prove where the money came from. This is telling you that we have to prove where the money came from, and we have to provide evidence that the money came from some legitimate sources and prove it, okay? Now, here's another thing right here, okay. Private Permitting Act, residential units, okay? Now, this is about, for the city, it's a little bit more complex. Allows privately hired reviewer to perform plan checking service if the city county estimates at the time needed. It's a little bit more of builders, I think, out of my league, out of my expertise I deal with. Housing development transit orientation. Okay, now, what this is means streamlines housing development areas where major transit rules designed to allow use provided to meet certain conditions. Okay, now, and it says SB 9 will not affect most suburban homes. Remember, there's like things going on that people don't want these housing communities, these apartment complexes, low-end property built in high-end suburban areas. They don't want that. Now, that's okay to have a little bit there, but you don't want to turn in, like you don't want to turn your homeowner association, like I just said, into a rental complex. So if there's 100 units in a complex, 25 to 30% can be rentals. The rest can't be. That's the important thing when you're buying and selling a condo or townhome. They can't be, you can't rent them all out because it turns into an apartment complex, okay? Now, here's another thing that's important to look at here. Mortgage and hazard insurance requires mortgage lender to make loans secured by properties, 1 to 4 units, but to pay 2% in property damages held by the mortgage lender. So this came out August 2025. What this is about insurance up a little bit, what I don't do, but I should know it. Okay, now there's something here from the Fair Plan Association. I have to read and understand that. Now we got a last page here, and what we'll do is, here's this last page we're dealing with. Okay. You guys can read that for a little bit right there. I'll give you the document to read for a second. Okay. Now what this is, real property transactions, county law sends unsolicited offers. Now, this happened during, if I'm not mistaken, during the wildfires, but here's the thing. Okay, because remember, what happened in LA and Ventura County during the fires. Prohibits buyers from making unsolicited offers on a residential property in a fire zones until 2027 January. Okay, so this means that you can't lowball people on buying the property. Oh, your property's worth $1 million. I'll give you $250,000 for it, and that's till January 2027. Okay, now here's what we just talked about: real estate hazard, environmental smoke, third-hand smoke. Now listen to this. It is the sole responsibility of the sellers to disclose actual knowledge of any residue, smoking, tobacco, or nicotine products in the residential area, or any occupants smoking on the property. It says actual knowledge. Disclose actual knowledge. What if you don't have actual knowledge? What if you have a renter, you're in California and he's in South Carolina or New York, and you say in your thing, no smoking in my apartment, and they smoke in your apartment, you don't know that. So actual knowledge. See, I don't have actual knowledge, but to say you have actual knowledge, you go down and get the nicotine tested so you know. Okay, residue smoking tobacco means chemical accumulation left behind smoke or nicotine products accumulates with carpets, walls, furniture, becomes embedded materials, persists for years as smoking stops. Smoking tobacco includes use of electronic cigarettes or vaping device. Okay, that doesn't include, what do you call it? That doesn't include chewing tobacco and stuff like that, because they leave a residue. Now, okay, now here's another thing about this. We just talked about this a second ago. Common Interest Development Association records, exterior elevated inspection, balcony disclosures. Now, here's what we talked about recently about disclosures. Okay, as to the standard package HOA disclosures, most recent balcony inspection reports mandates HOA will make available for inspection all balconies inspection reports. Revised requirements of balcony inspection report to require summary page indicating, among other things, balcony identifies as posing an immediate safety threat. So in other words, if they inspect the balcony and there's a safety threat, they must disclose the safety threat, and the home cannot sell with a damaged deck. Okay? Now, here's another thing here. Now, this is Board of Forestry, defense requirements, basic embedded zones, this right here, see, this one here, this is a little bit past what I do, but just so you know, it's within the documents here. Okay? So here's what I want to talk to you guys about for a couple more minutes. As I said before, we went through these documents here, all this stuff here, and we went through these forms here. Okay, you must disclose, understand what you're doing, understand if you're a renter owning a property you rent out, you got to provide the stove, the refrigerator, you have to provide this, you have to provide that, you have to disclose about smoking, you got to run your property, you have to understand if you're a buyer or seller, buying and selling real estate. The buyer's agent may not get paid enough because the seller will not provide the funds to the buyer's agent. You as a buyer's agent must know that. And you as a seller must understand that. You got buyers come in and buy your property, they can pay the commission to the agent. How's that going to affect the agent helping them sell? The important thing about this is understand what you're doing, do it honestly, do it right, and I want to thank you for coming in here. My name is Joe, P-A-D-O-B-I-C-H, at 949-439-0383. And here's what I was talking about today. I used to use this. This is from Pam. And this is a document I was talking to you guys about today. So let's sell some real estate. Let's go and work together. And if you have any questions, you got my number at Joe, P-A-D-O-B-I-C-H. I thank you so much for coming in, and have a great day, and thank you so much. And remember, be true to yourself and others.